One man, one mission, to rid the world of chronic anxiety once and for all. The Anxiety Guy, Dennis Simsek, shares his personal transformation from living a life filled with overwhelming worry to becoming a full-fledged positivity machine, a leading authority in generalized anxiety. Dennis gets to the truth of your mental health challenges and sets you on a path to transforming each and every area of your life. Here he is, the one and only, the Anxiety Guy.
Warriors, welcome to episode 306. I'm Dennis Simsek. This is the Anxiety Guy podcast. Thank you for being here with me. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Health Anxiety Program located at theanxietyguy.com under Health Anxiety. 12 Weeks to Freedom begins today. theanxietyguy.com. And my friends, recently I asked you, yes, if you're following me on Instagram at The Anxiety Guy, I created a post where I wanted to get your opinion on what this podcast episode should be focused on. And many of you upvoted this one idea. This idea around being hyperfixated on breathing, blinking, swallowing, and so on. And you know, I thought about this for a while, and I said, my goodness, when I was suffering from health anxiety, GAD, panic disorder, depression, you name it, I was also very hyperfixated on what my body was doing. I convinced myself that I was going crazy. I did everything in my power not to show these reactions to friends or people that I was talking to. I thought that my body was going through the most difficult, challenging times, and I had to constantly check in with the doctors to make sure that I was in fact healthy physically. And so this eats up a tremendous amount of energy, focus, and attention. And I want to focus on a couple of aspects of being hyperfixated on these things, these bodily reactions, so that you can come from a better understanding around them and use some practical, very practical steps starting today to begin moving away from these types of reactions. Does that sound good? If so, let's get going. These are unconsciously run reactions, and they keep us in a state of fight or flight. This state keeps us in a very low vibration, which means that essentially it's more difficult physically to fight against infections, viruses, and so on. This low vibration messes with us. It really, really does. And we get to a point where these habits become so normal, so fixated, so normal, that we can't differentiate between it being a reaction and a behavior and it being us. That's why so many times I say, you are more than anxiety. These reactions keep our perceptual filters focused on the bad, the potential catastrophe, which in turn pleases the inner child, because familiarity equals safety. Remember, when we talk about love and people out there talking about you gotta love yourself, well, what if my association to love is that of self-sabotage? What if love means hatred? Whatever we saw commonly when we were growing up became the definition of love. That's why you see so many people have so much difficulty truly loving themselves. These reactions mess up our perceptual filters. The more you stay in this vibration of fear, the more you will sort for what's wrong in your environment, what could go wrong. And if you continue to sort for these things, you're going to sweat profusely. You're going to go to the bathroom every 30 seconds. You're going to sit next to the exit door just in case a panic attack happens. You are in a trance, an anxiety trance. But through this podcast and the teachings in my programs, our job is to get you out of this trance and into a new one related to inner peace. A person who has lived the majority of their lives fighting for acceptance, fighting for self-worth, meaning, and inner peace, will keep fighting until more pain is associated towards their old perceptions and actions. Understand that you must consciously begin to associate pain to this hyperfixation. What is it keeping you from doing? Who is it keeping you from being? What relationships is it drowning out? How are these hyperfixated reactions causing you to become less creative? If we live our lives unconsciously, being run by the inner child subconscious mind, we will not see the pain within these reactions. We will only unconsciously see the value, the positive coming from the inner child. Because these reactions are exactly what the inner child wants. To stay in a realm of fear means that we can take action very, very quickly. This is called protection. That inner child loves us so much. The subconscious mind loves us so much that it doesn't want to go explore new territory. It doesn't want us to be anyone different. These are defense mechanisms to change. Unconsciously, we place value on fixating on these reactions. We've identified with the anxiety that comes with these reactions. Remember, being hyperfixated on something is a reaction. It's not you. It's not you. And the moment you can differentiate between it being a reaction and it being you, you're 50% of the way there. I also truly believe that these sorts of hyperfixated reactions have a lot to do with the lack of expression for someone. They are suppressing their ideas. They are suppressing their beliefs. They are suppressing who they want to be in the world. So, when you suppress over and over and over again, what happens? What happens when you continue to fill a bag full of clothes that's already overflowing? Well, it starts overflowing, doesn't it? And so we must, my friends, focus on a couple of very practical steps to move forward from this hyperfixation. I want you to write these down. I want you to start practicing these. You don't have to practice all three of them, but take at least one of them and start practicing them right here, right now. The first one may be the most important. 1, heal your childhood traumas through some type of regression work, because the unconscious associations that you've made between things is a result of experiences and learnings based around your most overwhelming experiences. You're living your present life based on the information you took on and the behaviors that you merged with your parents, authority figures from back in the day. Do some kind of regression work. Of course, the logic way and the rational thinking way of regression work most likely is the weakest. I would recommend some type of reframing practice that involves getting your body engaged and your imagination. Wasn't it Einstein that said the imagination is stronger than knowledge? And so, please, get in there. Do the dirty work, because it is dirty. A lot of times we feel like just because it's in our past, it's done. It's not. All the things that are playing out in the present moment is because you haven't resolved what it is you need to resolve from your past. Number 2, use an elastic band to catch yourself in the act. Snap the elastic band and practice the skill of trusting in your body to balance itself out rather than cognitively fighting with your thoughts. Remember, allowance is the goal. Allowance changes our perceptions. When we get to a place where we simply allow these ideas that lead to hyperfixation to be there without acknowledging them so much that they turn into the behavior, then we are healing. I remember when I got to a point where I had physical symptoms, I had cognitive ideas running through my mind, but I wasn't hyper-focused on them anymore. I didn't react in accordance with them. I wasn't them. And when I allowed them to be there, which is one strategy, allowing them to be there, I found that I was becoming somebody else. And as long as I wasn't afraid to become that person, as long as it wasn't too unfamiliar to me, I was going to become that person. Many times we fight to become somebody else, to overcome anxiety. But once we become somebody else, the feeling of uncertainty is too much. So we consciously and unconsciously go backwards again. Number 3, take an inventory of your checklist during situations that you feel like you're becoming fixated and start lessening your expectations. When you go into a situation you have expectations, you need to lessen those expectations. People can criticize you and that's okay. The experience can go in a direction that's different than what you expected and that's okay. You may say something wrong and that's okay. You may make a mistake and that's okay. All those things that you checked off where you said it has to go this way must change. You must limit your expectations. You must eliminate that checklist completely and say, you know what? I'm going to leave it in life's hands. Nothing is either good or bad. It is only life. So number 1, you need to heal your childhood traumas through some type of regression work. Number 2, use an elastic band to catch yourself in the act. And number 3, make sure that you take an inventory of your checklist during situations where you become fixated. And warriors, fixation may be habitual, but habits can change if we truly understand the path they are taking us down. Remember that. You're going from an unconscious being to a conscious being. You're going from someone that was unaware to someone who is aware. You're going from someone who believed that anxiety held a lot of value to someone who realized that anxiety has no value whatsoever. When you're making this transition, believe in the new you. Work towards it. And once you become it in that moment, don't run from it. Don't come up with stories as to how you won't be able to maintain it, but rather love this new you. Find inner peace in all you do, and you'll also find love. Have a wonderful day. Remember that you are more than anxiety. Head over to theanxietyguy.com. Learn more about the Health Anxiety Program today. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being an important part of the Anxiety Guy podcast community. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a positive rate and review. If you're searching for further support on your road to recovery from anxiety, head over to anxietyexit.com and take part in the powerful End the Anxiety program based around the CBT model. If you're searching for a more one-on-one approach, you can sign up now for personal coaching sessions with Dennis via Skype. Remember, you are more than anxiety. See you in the next episode.